Bitcoin touched a fresh all-time high above 124K last night before getting slammed over 5% this morning. So what killed the rally? Was it a hotter than expected PPI print that just torpedoed September rate cut hopes? Or was it a bombshell interview with the Treasury Secretary walking back months of bullish talk on the strategic Bitcoin reserve? We'll get to the bottom of it, and stick around till the end because we'll look at Adam Back's new take on the 4-year cycle, and it might change the way you think about where we really are in this Bitcoin bull market. Welcome to No Second Best, the show where conviction meets reality and reality points straight to Bitcoin. I'm your host, Hurley. Now let's get into it. Bitcoin teased the big breakout once again, rising up to a new all-time high of over 124K last night, before crashing back down over 5% this morning. At the time of recording, the price is consolidating around 118K. So what kneecapped this latest rally? It seems a few things were in play, so let's dissect them one by one. Firstly, US Producer Price Index, or PPI, came in much hotter than expected this morning at 3.7%. Signaling rising producer costs that could foreshadow broader inflation. Prior to this data, the markets had predicted the chances of Fed interest rate cuts in September at nearly 100%. Now, those forecasts will have to be sharply redrawn as the threat of sticky inflation looks to vindicate Fed Chair Powell and sticks a thorn in the side of President Trump, who's been advocating for large interest rate cuts since being elected. Now, whether we see elevated inflation prints again at the next Fed meeting or not is still up in the air. But it looks like the market took this to be short-term bearish news, as a sell-off that started in the early morning accelerated after the PPI print. And of course, we got a fresh flush of long liquidations, which saw over $100 billion wiped out of the broader crypto industry. Another factor in the legs being cut out of this rally was an interview that aired live this morning on Fox Business with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
Mr. Secretary, you're also pretty much revaluing gold, right? The Treasury has pegged 261.5 million ounces of gold at $42.22 an ounce from a price set back in 1973 for $11 billion. If you look at current market prices of gold, you're talking about a number way above $750 billion. What's the story on gold?
We've got the large gold holding. I doubt we're going to revalue it, but we are going to keep it there, again, as a store of value for the American people. We've also started to get into the 21st century, a Bitcoin strategic reserve. We're not going to be buying that, but we are going to use confiscated assets and continue to build that up. We're going to stop selling that. I believe that Bitcoin reserve at today's prices is somewhere between 15 and 20 billion.
So definitely some very interesting comments from Bessent. He seems to have gone back on some things previously talked about by the administration. Firstly, he made it clear that it is unlikely that the US Treasury revalues their gold holdings, which was something that was brought forward by the administration on numerous occasions as a potential avenue for increased revenue that could also be used to add to their Bitcoin holdings. In fact, just last week, the Fed published an article citing the possible avenue of revaluing gold and even added in a footnote Senator Cynthia Lummis's Bitcoin bill as a framework for using some of the proceeds to add to their Bitcoin holdings. More notably, Bessent said that they do not plan on buying more Bitcoin for the reserve, which along with revaluing their gold holdings was a major talking point of Bo Hines, the former executive director of Trump's Council on Digital Assets. Bo Hines stepped down from his position over the weekend, and now Bessent makes clear that they do not plan on buying more Bitcoin for the reserve. It's unclear if the two are linked, but it really makes you wonder what went on behind the scenes. The third notable comment Bessent made was the US government's current Bitcoin holdings. He said they hold roughly $15 to $20 billion worth, which when you do the math is quite a bit less than what was previously thought. $15 billion worth at today's prices would be around 125,000 Bitcoin, and $20 billion worth would be around 175,000 Bitcoin, both amounts being quite a bit lower than the previously reported total of over 200,000 coins. So whether this means the outgoing administration sold a chunk of their holdings on the way out, or if Bessent is just spitballing approximate totals, again, it's unclear. What is clear is that these comments come across as a bit of a gut punch to the hype surrounding the strategic Bitcoin reserve this administration has flaunted over the last 6 months. But let's zoom out for a second. Neither the Bitcoin thesis nor even this current bull run has relied on the US government buying Bitcoin. Scott Bessent, as the Treasury Secretary, is a US debt salesman first and foremost. Any sizable Bitcoin purchase would be a clear admission that the US fiscal outlook is in very real danger, so it's always been a very low probability. This is just another stark reminder to always follow the incentives, and never take what politicians say as lip service at face value. The incentives for this administration and their pro-crypto policy has always been about votes, donations, and extending dollar dominance through stablecoins. The US government aping into Bitcoin now would be a signal to rival nations around the world that the US fiscal situation is worse than anyone previously imagined, which would further hurt confidence in the dollar as the world's reserve currency. This aligns with what I've generally thought since the start of this year. This part of Bitcoin's adoption is about corporate and institutional adoption. We are, however, being teased in this cycle with what I think will be the next big narrative towards the end of the decade and into the 2030s, which is nation-state adoption. So the people that are panic selling because the US government said on national TV that they won't be pumping your bags don't really understand Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an exit from a monetary system that's engineered for debasement, for political expediency, and for transferring wealth from savers to debtors. Whether the US Treasury owns 200,000 coins or zero doesn't change the fact that the 21 million supply is fixed, that every year your dollars are worth less and less, and that over time, capital will flow toward the one asset no central banker can print. Government support comes and goes with the political winds. The Bitcoin network doesn't care. It keeps producing blocks roughly every 10 minutes. And it keeps rewarding those with the foresight to opt out now before the global scramble really begins. So yes, follow the incentives. But more importantly, remember the one incentive that never changes, the desire to protect your purchasing power. That's why we're here. That's why we stack. And that's why this game is only just beginning. And if you want help making that transition the right way, with a dedicated advisor, deep research, custom strategy, and direct access to Bitcoin experts, that's exactly what we do at Swan Private. Whether you're a high net worth individual, a corporate treasury, or just someone who wants to move serious capital into Bitcoin with professional guidance, Swan Private is your partner for generational wealth. Visit swan.com/private to learn more. And speaking of the long game, join us in Washington, D.C. this September for BTC in D.C. This is more than just a conference. It's where Bitcoin meets policy, where the builders, thinkers, and decision makers shaping Bitcoin's future will be in the room together. Visit btcindc.com and use promo code SWAN for 10% off tickets. And finally, a quick shout out to Mara, the world's largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. Now, before we close for today, I want to bring a fresh perspective on the 4-year cycle debate that we've covered a lot on this channel. Bitcoin mega OG, Adam Back, who many of you know as the godfather of proof of work, and who was also cited directly in Satoshi's Bitcoin white paper, well, he posted a new way to look at the 4-year Bitcoin cycle. Adam Back proposes a novel way to look at cycle start and end dates. Most people look at cycles either by measuring the cycle peak to peak or the bottom to peak. In this view, cycle tops are the highest price point between two halving dates. This would mean that the last cycle top wasn't November 2021, but March 2024 when the price hit 73K. In his model, this cycle end estimate would be around March 2028. He also acknowledges that some argue the top that counted was November 2021 at 69K, and that a 4-year interval would be November 2025, which is only 3 months from now. But he adds, quote, "Does it feel like the bull market will fade in 3 months? Who knows? Personally, I don't think so. Dips aside, I'd expect more all-time highs later." User Brett illustrated this thesis in chart form, and as you can see, using this example, we can theoretically still have large corrections or even a full-on bear market. Back is just saying that we will likely see more all-time highs before the next halving in 2028. Just some food for thought as we enter uncharted territory in terms of Bitcoin cycle dynamics. Whatever you believe, one thing is for sure. This is a very unprecedented bull market for Bitcoin, and so it's fun to extrapolate and try to predict what the next few months and years will look like. I'll leave you with this chart, which shows that over the past 3 years, the S&P 500 is down 80% when priced in Bitcoin. Just another example that there is no second best. But I'd love to hear what you think of back cycle theory. And do you think Scott Bessent just put an axe in the strategic Bitcoin reserve? And will the hot PPI print cause sticky inflation and delay Fed rate cuts even further? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the Swan Bitcoin channel for more signal every single day. Thanks for watching, and remember, there is no second best money.